Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of Pure Light, where your worthiness is never the question. The question is, can you feel it? My name is Aili, and this episode is about FOMO. And I have a quick, funny story. I was talking to my sister just before I came to sit down and record this podcast episode. And I told her I was going to do a podcast episode on the fear of missing out. And she had never heard of that. She was like, what is that? So if you have never heard of FOMO, it's actually in the dictionary now. I just looked it up on dictionary.com, which defines it as a feeling of anxiety or insecurity over the possibility of missing out on something, such as an event or an opportunity. And I want to share a story here back from my last year of high school, where I had a serious case of FOMO. So in my last year of high school, I wanted to figure out what to do with my life, which is a pretty big thing to be thinking about when you're 18 and don't have a lot of life experience. And I was curious about nutrition, so I kind of wanted to study that, but I also wasn't really sure if I really wanted to be a nutritionist. And anyway, I was looking at university programs, and I was looking at this nutrition program at one particular school, and I thought it looked pretty good. And while I was looking through that school's brochure, I noticed the engineering programs as well. And the engineering programs there looked really interesting. They weren't the traditional kind of programs, like they weren't like civil, chemical, mechanical, and that kind of thing. They were way more innovative in terms of how they had arranged their programs. And I remember mentioning it to my dad, and he jumped all over it. So he got really excited about it. He's an engineer himself, and he had gone to school in Toronto for engineering. And he also had a tendency when my brother and sister and I were in school to get excited about anything related to science, like our science projects and that kind of thing. And anyway, his excitement was so great about this that I was like, wow, maybe this is what I need to do with my life. And it made me seriously consider going into engineering. And that happened pretty early on in my last year of high school. And so over the next couple of months, I put in my applications. And I ended up only applying to engineering, which was kind of interesting and unexpected, but that's just the way that things worked out. And I really didn't want to go to school in Toronto because I wanted to go away. But at the same time, I felt like I should apply to Toronto because my dad had gone there. And so I ended up applying to this specific engineering program at Toronto that was the hardest to get into in Canada at that point in time, figuring that like I wouldn't get in and then I wouldn't feel guilty about going somewhere else. And this was a very competitive program. It's one where not that many people get in. You need like really, really high marks, which my marks were good, but they weren't that good. And so I figured it was like a safe bet to apply and then get rejected and then have a reason to go somewhere else. But the problem was that they actually let me in. I had a lot of extracurriculars too, so that may have been a factor, but I ended up getting into this program that I didn't think I was going to get into. And so when that happened, I was faced with this huge dilemma. Like, do I take this opportunity or do I go elsewhere like I wanted to? And I felt like I had to take the opportunity, even though it wasn't what I really wanted. Like, it felt like it was something that was just too good to pass up. I really didn't want to go into that program. I was kind of terrified about it. But I felt like I should go, and I felt like it would be a huge missed opportunity. So I ended up going into this really hard engineering program, even though my heart wasn't in it, and even though I was terrified. And I basically made my decision about what to study in university based on the fear of missing out. So I went into this hard engineering program because I was scared of missing out on the opportunity. What happened next is another story, perhaps for another day. But in retrospect, I don't think it was the best decision for me to go into that program because it wasn't what I really wanted. And ultimately, it was rooted in fear. It was rooted in the fear of missing out. I want to be clear about something. This is not at all about the program. This is about my ability to make decisions for my own life. So here's where I'm going with all of this. Every decision you make is going to have an underlying intention and a driving force. So when you give in to the fear of missing out, you end up missing out on the opportunities that you truly desire. If I had trusted what I really wanted, I probably would have made different choices, not only about where I went to school, but potentially even about what I applied to. And I don't have any regrets on this now because enough time has passed, but I know over the years I've certainly wondered about that decision and questioned it because it probably was not the healthiest choice for me. So if you are struggling with the fear of missing out on some event or some opportunity in your life, I have a couple of questions for you that you can ask yourself to see what is truly the best choice for you. So here they are. You can ask yourself, what am I scared of missing out on? What is it that I truly want here? And if I trusted myself, what would I choose? If you want to share any of your reflections, I would love to hear them. Use the hashtag PureLightPodcast on Instagram or Twitter. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, may you be guided by your light.